Welcome to the Show Up Well Show. I'm your host, Jan Goss, and I'm so excited that you're here. Today, I have a very special guest, and we're going to find out, are there physicians who can actually take the complex and make it simple so we can understand what's going on in our bodies? Are there doctors who really care about not just our physical body, but our mental and our emotional and our spiritual health as well? You're going to find out on the Show Up Well Show. I have with me today the man, the myth, the legend, Dr. Kevin Hoffarth, and his journey is just ahead. Welcome to the Show Up Well Show, where we talk about how to show up well in life and in business so you can live your best life every day. I am your host, Jan Goss, a protocol consultant. I understand protocols. I was born in the middle of Europe. My father was an officer in the military, and we moved 21 times in 18 years. I had to learn to show up well. It was survival for me. In 2007, I graduated from the Protocol School of Washington in DC, where I received the same training as diplomats, ambassadors, and the presidential staff. Add to that 30 years of experience in personal and professional development, and Show Up Well Consulting was born. Too often, the limelight is on those who set poor examples of how to live a healthy life. Because of that, this show shines the light on those who show up well. Welcome to the Show Up Well Show. I'm reading headlines in the New York Times that are talking about the distrust of Americans in the medical profession. What happened? We just don't trust doctors anymore. When I was a kid, I had to dress up just to go to the doctor. They were like gods when I was being raised. Today's guest is someone who is turning around the trust issue from distrust to trust. As a matter of fact, he has a 2-year waiting list to come and see him. And he doesn't even take insurance. I mean, come on. Everybody wants to see him. Dr. Kevin Hoffarth, founder of BioFit Medicine and author of the book Functional Medicine, is here with me today. And you are about to find out why he is one of my favorite humans on the whole planet. Kevin, it's great to have you. Thank you for being with me today. I'm so excited.
My gift. And do you recall how we met?
Oh no, this could embarrass me. I don't know.
No, it was great. It was a great story. I had a patient, mutual friends, but we didn't know. And she asked me to do a talk at this woman's function one night.
I do remember.
And she just said, she didn't give me a whole lot. She just said, hey, would you mind talking? And I'm like, about what? And she's like, anything female health. And I'm like, sure, I can do that. No problem. And I showed up, very high powered, lovely women. Mm-hmm. And then she grabbed me right after and she said, she literally just grabbed me, took me by my hand, walked me outside. And she says, Jan, meet Kevin. Kevin, meet Jan. She literally walked away.
I forgot about this.
And which makes me laugh because she's an introvert and she saw 2 extroverts coming together and they're like, they'll be fine.
That's exactly what happened. I forgot
the rest
all
is
about
history.
That. Exactly. Well, I tell you what, that was the beginning of a beautiful journey, and I really appreciate our friendship, and I really am just amazed at what you're doing in this world. And what I want the world to know about you, Kevin, is what really drives you, because you are so driven and you're so passionate. Tell me what that is. What is it that drives you? What is your passion?
You know, the cliche is, you go into medicine to help people. And you realize that, yeah, of course, you want to help people. Mm-hmm. But my dad was a physician, so I kind of had that built in. My mom was a nurse, I had that built in. But I didn't see it the way my parents did. I wanted to see that, because my dad's situation in the world that he was in medicine, when you were bringing up at the beginning of the show, was he was the patriarch.
Right.
It was everyone sort of, whatever my dad said, they would follow. And I kind of quickly was kind of the opposite in that realm, where
you can say a little rebel. You can go ahead and say that.
where I just saw medicine as, it's so important that people take back their own power. In my first book, I really emphasized, having a ton of patients who were business people, which as physicians, we are not business people by any means. I took 0 business classes in my 12 years of postgraduate training. But I recognize that looking at a person through the eyes of all my patients who were business people made me realize that everyone should be the CEO of them. And
okay, can we just sit on that for a second? Because did you hear what he said? Be the CEO of yourself. Like, you take charge of you, and you're passionate about that.
I firmly believe, people, we go to our priests, we go to our ministers, we go to our therapists, we go to all these people, and we're asking them to tell us what we need. And as a physician, I don't know what you need. Okay, I know how to get you from A to B faster, maybe with a lot less pain. Okay. But ultimately, my very first question to every new patient I see is, what are your goals? What are your concerns? Because you, and that will allow me to help you become your best, because you're already awesome. Okay. I always believe everyone's an 8-figure, car. And my role is to help you get out of your own way. That's it.
And how does the whole person play a part in that? We've had these discussions before about how in the area of medicine that we break our bodies down into all these different parts. And your book certainly addresses all of that. But how does our mental and emotional and spiritual health play a part? Like, how does it all work together? Like, help us understand that.
Yeah, that's, so first of all, I always tell my patients, and I always remind myself, I have the easy job. Okay. All I have to do is first help you get out of your own way and help your body optimize. That's the easy job.
It sounds so simple.
It frankly, it is. Okay.
Well, you're one of those physicians who can take the complex things and you make them simple so that we can live a healthy life. It's amazing.
One of the things that bothers me about, say, medicine or many areas is we overcomplicate it. One of my roles, I do believe, is taking the mystery out of it, helping people see behind the veil and realize, look, first of all, you're the CEO of you. Number 2 is, you know what you need. And 3 is, it doesn't have to be that complicated. My role as a physician guide, I don't see myself as anything other than a guide, is to help my patients see, look, there are a lot of things you can do. There's a lot of fancy things. I love, all the fancy things you can do these days in terms of peptides and red light therapy and all these, neurocognitive, training. And there's a lot of great stuff out there, and they each have their place. But the first place and the simple place to start is the body. If your body is optimal, then your mind, your thoughts are going to flow. No one actually, if you don't look or feel your best, it's hard to emotionally emote yourself in a way to the world and show up optimal.
And show up well.
Show up well. And so I always say, I got the easy job.
Okay.
The first part is let's get the body going. That's what I talk about in my first book, The Functional Medicine, The New Standard. But in the last chapter, I tease, everyone with, okay, yes, these are the things that will get your body optimal. These are the needle movers. I actually only talk about needle movers. I don't get caught up on a lot of the esoteric components. For example, everyone wants to talk to me about supplements. And I always say, remember, supplements, the word means supplement. And you can't supplement yourself to good health. And so, a thing that I annoyingly say to my patients is, health starts and ends in the kitchen every single time.
And you live that.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yes.
But it's true. And then once you kind of get to that piece where I always tell my patients, once you sort of get a PhD of yourself in the basics, I call it, of your body, then let's hammer out the mind and the thoughts, which is the hard part.
Okay. We have a sizzle reel I want to roll. Let's go ahead and make that happen.
But majority of your fat distribution is telling us that your cortisol has been up for way too long.
Greatness, I don't know. I mean, we're all great in our own way. So you're doing great work, and I'm lucky to work with great people. And great patients. So that's where it's all where it stands for me.
I have with me today Dr. Kevin Hoffarth, and he is an anomaly. You're not going to find someone else like him on this planet. And we are so blessed and fortunate to have him here on the Show Up Well show today. Now, Kevin, you made a little comment about your book, The Functional Medicine, and there's a tagline on the bottom of that.
The New Standard.
The New Standard, because I want to make sure that we make that clear that this is the new standard in medicine. But you were talking about how the last chapter of that book actually alludes to what your new book is all about. Can you just, I know it's coming, but can you just give us maybe just an overview of STAMP, and then, you don't have to go into all of it, but an overview of the book. You have to get the book to find out about how to take charge over your own health. But if you'll just we got the STAMP in the first book, but you left us with a whole new dimension in that last chapter of your book. And now you have another book coming out. So tell me just a little bit about that.
Yeah. So first of all, in medical school, we're we are taught the last chapters of someone's health journey. Right. So by the time they see me, they are already having signs or symptoms. They're having headaches or stomach aches or whatever. Right. And then we name and tag it with a disease. And that's the last chapter. Functional medicine is just taking and saying, okay, let's go backwards and reverse engineer our thought processes, how someone gets to where they are. Right. Because otherwise we're just band-aiding
it'll happen all over again. If
you don't solve the etiology, the root, then you're, but here's the beauty of it, okay, is as you reverse engineer through a disease, going through, and in my book, I go through the details of how the immune system works, how it sets up the problems, and then going back from that, how does it break down the defense systems? Before that is what's knocking down the defense systems is the STAMP that you alluded to. So stressors, toxins, allergens, microbes, and poor diet. That's what I cover. But then what I allude to at the very last chapter was, whoa, wait. We're not at the first chapter yet.
Right.
The first chapter, or maybe even the second chapter, because book 3.
There's another book coming.
There's a book 3 coming out.
I can feel it.
Is that what leads to our choices of our stressors, our toxins, our allergens, our microbes, and poor diet is our thoughts, our mindset.
This is so.
And everyone goes, oh, okay, thoughts. But I don't think we actually fully appreciate it. I know I didn't. I'm 51 years old, and it's taking me 51 years to appreciate how our mind is actually a huge root etiology to all disease. Yes, you heard me correctly.
I love this. This is so powerful because one thing we do have power over is ourselves and our thoughts.
Yes.
We have control over that.
And what's interesting is we do, but we don't. Okay.
Well,
and
at least our conscious
right.
thoughts, I guess I should say.
And what I mean though, it's like, yeah, you're right. Our conscious thoughts. And if we can learn to have focus on one thought at a time, we would actually literally shift the healthcare design of how each his body works. Let me explain. Let me just give you
so good.
Let me just give you kind of a basic teaser of what I mean by that. It's a very complicated issue, but it's beautiful, and it's actually quite simple in the big picture. If you have thoughts of, say, love, okay, those thoughts are going to lead to neurotransmitters in your brain to stimulate things like dopamine, serotonin, which are going to actually build out a chemistry of signals within the brain to now trigger our nervous system, which in this case would be the parasympathetic nervous system. And parasympathetic nervous system is the part of our system that's involved in digestion, intimacy, love, restoration, rejuvenation, healing. Okay, and that's the key part. Healing. Okay, we are not in a healing state if we are in a drive of sympathetic, which is everybody talks about is running from the tiger. In today's world, it's just stress, or that generic word that we use is stress. Now, going down below that, okay, once you have this soup of signals working for you, so thoughts of love, dopamine, serotonin, parasympathetic nervous system, people probably heard of the vagus nerve that starts to stream out the signals, okay, which then leads to a different soup of signals that's not inflammatory driven of the immune system, but driven for healing, which then gets down to the level of your cells, which then further leads to how the genes are being read. So this is to me the absolute excitement of where we're at today. In 2001, prior to 2001, there was this belief system in the scientific community before the Human Genome Project was completed that one gene equals one protein.
Right.
Okay. So at the time, it's expanded beyond this, but at the time it was about 110, 120,000 proteins. So the belief prior to the completion of this project was that there was going to be about 120,000 genes. Okay. Now, the Human Genome Project completes, and guess what? We have about 20,000 genes. Less than a mouse. Okay.
We missed that one big time.
Yes, we did. Yes. And the scientific community was like, whoa. Okay. So so obviously one gene does not equal one protein. And so the world of epigenetics built out of that. Epi being above the genes.
Right.
And epigenetics is, maybe genes are just a map, an instruction manual. But what's weird is one gene, wait a minute, can produce 20, 30 different proteins? Well, how does it know which one?
And our bodies are so intelligent.
Yes. Well, you can have good instructions, or you can have instructions that are designed to compensate for your bad choices. Okay.
We have to take responsibility during all this
Yes,
process,
unfortunately
right?
we do. Unfortunately do.
Okay.
And epigenetics is actually the new science, and this is what is functional medicine, integrative medicine, regenerative medicine, all these the words that people hearing about. I don't even like to consider myself a functional medicine per se. I like to consider myself as someone who's realizing that no particular philosophy of medicine has it all right or all wrong, because if it were, we would not be sick.
Exactly.
And what's sad is the United States, recently went up against 7 other industrial countries in terms of health measures and of high income countries. And guess what place we got?
I'm scared.
Last.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And so I want people, I want my patients, I want you, I want your audience to just say, wait a minute. If I was running a company and I was in last place, I'm spending more money than anybody else. You better, I'm going to fire you. Okay. And this is why you're the CEO of you. First of all, you have to turn back to yourself and go, well, what am I doing here that's maybe not working? But also, is the system that we're in, is it even allowing for empowerment in the first place?
To the individual.
To the individual. And this is why I say every single person who's watching this, share it in the sense of, I want you to, each person to leave this interview and say, you know what? I'm gonna ask my physician or my provider of what I want. Okay, because this is what's going to change the healthcare system. It's not us expecting the system to change. It's us
changing the system.
Well, it's expecting them to do us better and empower us individually, because truly health comes from within. And when you look at the stair-stepping of where disease is, starts here in our thoughts.
Oh my goodness. Okay. We're going to have him back. You know, we have to have like a whole series of Dr. Kevin Hoffarth shows on the Show Up Well show, because I think it's a little double entendre there. It's like show up well. Like I want everyone to show up, not just show up in life, but to show up in a healthy way, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. We deserve it.
Oh, I mean, you know, if we're going to go that extra one layer up thoughts, is we're all spiritual beings. You know, when we talk about health, rarely will you not hear someone say mind, body, spirit. So I think most people would fall under the belief of something higher than that. I certainly believe that. And what's fascinating though is, again, we complicate this. We are, you know, spiritual beings that are meant to be amazing. We are already amazing.
Exactly.
And when showing up well, I remind my patients, I said, you know, when we're talking about mind, body, spirit, the beauty is we don't need to fix your spirit.
I know.
Your spirit is already awesome. It's your body, the easy part, that acts as the vessel to your mind suddenly becoming a trained mind. So this is something that if you're teasing for the next book, we're a society of a lot of untrained minds. And I want people to start to recognize that a trained mind is one that's emotionally regulated and is one thought at a time. And you are controlling your inner world regardless of what's going around you.
You're preaching my sermon. This is the Show Up Well sermon. Wow.
And you know, everyone talks about I'm triggered. And you know, that word kind of it's funny because if you're getting triggered, you're living within your 7-year-old self. Okay. And let me explain what I mean by that. And by the way, we're all living in our 7-year-old self. In the first 7 years of our life, we are building out what is called our subconscious. And this is our hardware, okay, that is literally almost like a microfiche, and I'm totally dating myself right now, but the microfiche, you know, like
I have no idea
recording.
What you're talking about.
And it's recording everything.
Right.
Now, within that subconscious, though, it's learning, okay, how to respond emotionally and behaviorally to the people who are raising us in that first 7 years of life. Right. So, for example, I have 2 older sisters. Whoever has siblings, they'll be the first thing they'll say is like, were they raised in the same family?
We say that all the time.
People say that all the time to me. Like, are
we
these
have the same parents?
Yeah, exactly. But what's so interesting is we were raised by different parents, because My sisters are my oldest sister's 7 years older than me. So she got my parents who were 7 years younger, who were in a different part of their life. So they got a different version, in a sense, of that person. And so what she learned in that time window was different than my time window.
Right.
And so I probably got the best because my parents were older, more economically stable, and my other sisters were already sort of older. So I kind of got all the attention, you know, the baby.
I know we're shocked. We're shocked right now.
Yeah, all right. That's fair. That's fair. I'll go with that. But it's interesting though that how we respond then becomes what we tend to talk about. And this is the thing about medicine I really try to avoid. There's no good and bad. So if anything that's made by the body is not bad or good, it's about a balance. Otherwise, if it's made by the body and talking about it as bad is kind of a silly argument. Well, in the world of our subconscious, which is our ego,
right?
That's not bad or good. That's your 7-year-old self showing up for you,
right?
And saying, you know what, Jan, I'm here to protect you. I don't want you to feel pain.
Right.
So I always tell people, imagine your 7-year-old self and get on one knee and look straight at the eye of your 7-year-old self and say, I love you. You know, let's say you're in an emotional conflict with someone and your response is maybe not as optimal as you'd like. Look down at your 7-year-old self and say, you know what? Thank you for coming in, showing up for me, but I got this.
Yeah.
And this is the version of trained versus untrained minds.
So good. This is so good.
If we learn to accept that our 7-year-old self is delivering our message and running our business,
you're going to fire that kid.
Well, I mean, look, if you're running a business, do I want my 7-year-old self or my 51-year-old self?
Right, exactly.
Okay? And so it's hopefully my 51-year-old self is what I choose. And when people have arguments or triggered, I want people to realize that is your 7-year-old coming in and saying, hey, what's the underlying feature to what someone said that is translating as a 7-year-old? So without sophistication, and then responding maybe inappropriately.
Wow. This is a lot.
Yes.
It's a lot. First of all, you have to get the book, The Functional Medicine. It really is the new standard. So that's number one. Number two, watch for the next book that's coming out. Now, we just have a couple of moments left. If someone's watching and they say, I need what you have, what's the best way for them to connect with you, get in touch with you? Do they have to wait 2 years to even, maybe see you or get information from you? What's the process? How can someone connect with you?
So yes, there is a 2-year wait list in my practice. A great problem to have, right, obviously. But as moving into 2024, this is something that has been on my heart and mind for several years. And I only finally recently go, okay, it's time for me to make the next step, is to build out a virtual online practice where I'm teaching the basic principles to as many people who want to. Because, there are certain things that when I say the body is easy, there are very specific rules, biochemical rules, physiological rules that if everyone applies and understands deeply the PhD of themselves, they will actually have great physical health. Okay. So that part is going to be, and there's a couple of elements that every single human as we get older needs. We need a great kitchen. We need great hormone replacement options that has become completely misfiring in how the myths are about that. And then there needs to be stress management, but that goes a little higher in my second book, which is thoughts. So I'm integrating all these features. And so the first book will provide sort of the foundation, the virtual online practice that you could go to at biofitmedicine.com, which will be attached to that at the beginning of 2024. And then my book will be coming out in 2024 as well. all these components will allow people on a broader level to start to integrate how to empower myself. Because if there's only, I'm just one person, okay? And, I have a big enough job to try to figure out my thoughts, okay? And I recognize that each person has their own journey, their own story, their own desires. And this is why I say, I don't know what you want. I can only help guide you to literally, what's the fastest way to get from A to B? And most people you mentioned this at the very beginning, where most people get their information. Having done this for over 20 years, I realized that my females get most of their information through researching other sources, like online, and where my men get all their information from their spouses. Okay, and
shows you who runs the world.
Yeah,
what can I say?
exactly. And what's interesting about that, we do this in everything. I realized I was writing an article for a financial advisor friend of mine who just put out a book, and I realized I was like, I've done this in the financial world. I went to all my friends, everyone who didn't know anything about finances, and I just kept following their patterns, realizing they were asking their friends, and I'm like, why am I not going to a professional who does this for a living?
Exactly.
And so we do this in every area.
We do.
And so health is no
there's
different.
hope.
There is
There's
hope.
hope.
There is hope.
There's hope, and you're giving it to so many people. So, well, we just have a moment as we close out. Are there any final thoughts that you just want to plant? Is there a final thought you would want to put? Let's go in that realm of thought.
Yeah. Yes.
Like, what thought do you want to put in the minds of people?
I think I learned this recently when I was doing some neurocognitive training. And if we could all what I came out of the number one thing is, when I don't know what to say or do, just be love. Because love will then also ignite health and thoughts and inspiration. So if you're confused of where to start in your life, just think about love, and it'll get you on the right path.
You heard it firsthand. I told you, the man, the myth, the legend, Dr. Kevin Hoffarth. Just be love, and that's what you are. As we end the show today, I want you to know that I really appreciate you tuning in. And please like, subscribe, share this episode with the people who you care about. We all need the information that came forth on the show today. And remember, as you go into your life, don't just show up, but show up well, because life matters.